Hello and welcome again to another Ourdadsstamps video. For today's video I'm going to talk about the stamps of Mauritius. Mauritius is a small island about 2,000 kilometres off the southeast coast of Africa, and it's well known throughout the stamp world for one or two reasons. Firstly, that the first two postage stamps were issued in 1847, and they were the first stamps issued in any part of the British Empire outside of Great Britain. The second reason is that these stamps have become legendary throughout the stamp world. The stamps were issued in September 1847, and they consisted of a penny red and a twopenny blue, which loosely followed the design of the penny black, with an image of Queen Victoria and the value written along the bottom. These stamps currently have a value of £1.3 million for the penny red and £1.5 million for the twopenny blue. It is generally agreed that only 15 examples of the penny red survive and only 12 of the twopenny blue, so you can see why they attain such a value. Certainly when we were growing up, my dad referred to these stamps as the holy grail of stamp collecting, and something that everybody would love to own but most likelihood would never do. These first stamps were issued from a single plate which contained 500 of the penny red and 500 of the twopenny blue, and most of the stamps were used on envelopes containing invites to the governor's ball, and as such the envelopes were discarded and just the invite kept, so many of the stamps for this reason didn't survive. The stamps themselves are inscribed with the words post office on the left hand side, and a year later these were reprinted with the words post paid on the left hand side. Now many people have described this original printing as an error and should always have been post-paid. However, that has really been disproved, since previous to these stamps many mail items from the Mauritius carried the words post office on them, as this was the legal denomination of the government department concerned. It was also suggested that the engraver, Joseph Barnard, made a mistake and just absent-mindedly produced them as they are. The plates were approved by officials and issued without any fuss at the time, so that would suggest that they were intended to say the words post office. In any case, it's a distinguishing factor between the ones with an astronomical value and the ones with a mere £500,000 valuation. Most of the surviving copies are now in museums and only a few remain in private collections. An interesting story that goes with it, that the future King George V paid £1,450 for an unused twopenny blue in 1904, which was a world record at the time. And the following morning one of his secretaries allegedly commented that some damn fool had paid a huge amount of money for one of those postage stamps, to which George replied, "Yes, sir, and I am that damn fool." There is one surviving cover which remarkably contains a penny red and a twopenny blue together, and it is known as the Bordeaux cover. This was sold in 1993 for the equivalent of about $4 million. And in July 2021, a ball invitation sent by the governor's wife, Lady Gom, sold for over €11 million, making it the most expensive philatelic item ever sold at auction. So as you can see, these stamps and associated philatelic items have always attracted a lot of interest and continue to do so now. And if you ever get the chance to see them, it's well worth going for a visit. In 1848, these stamps were reprinted with the words post paid on the side. these stamps still have a huge catalogue value, and subsequently there are many forgeries around. So if you're intending to spend £500,000 on a stamp, then it might be an idea to check that it's the real deal. In 1858, the familiar Britannia stamp was issued. This had been used in several other of the British colonies and initially featured no value on the stamp whatsoever. It was purely the colour of the stamp that suggested which denomination it was. The green stamp had a denomination of 4p, the vermilion stamp 6p, and a magenta stamp at 9p. Later these were reprinted with values in the bottom, and once again these stamps are worth quite a bit of money, although the vermilion stamp without a value on it can be picked up with a catalogue value of about £70, so that might be worth looking into. There were also a couple, a brown stamp and a blue stamp, again with no value on them, that were printed but not issued, and these have come into the philatelic community and can be picked up very cheaply. So be aware that if you see those ones, it's not necessarily the high value stamps. Mauritius went back to using stamps with an image of Queen Victoria in 1859, and in 1860 a set was issued that ran from a penny up to 1 shilling. As you can imagine, with the age of these stamps, they are quite valuable and well worth looking out for if you can get hold of them. The original set had no watermark, and then in 1863 another set was issued with the Crown CC watermark. The Crown CC watermark ones aren't quite as valuable as the no watermark stamps, so it may be worth trying to get hold of some of those. Just something to look out for with these stamps. In 1878, Mauritius changed to decimal currency, and all the pound, shilling and pence stamps were overprinted with cancelled on them. Now these still have a philatelic value, but it's considerably less than the mint value of the original stamp, so they can be picked up fairly cheaply if you want to have at least a copy of that sort of stamp. As I said, in 1878 they changed to decimal values, and initially the imperial set were overprinted with decimal values. But then in 1879 a completely new set was issued, which runs from 2 cents up to 2 rupees 50. The whole set of 9 stamps has a catalogue value of about £1,000 mint and £750 used, so not an easy one to get hold of, but certainly worth looking at if you're into Victorian stamps. Between 1880 and 1890, a lot of stamps were overprinted with surcharge values, and this led to lots of variations, with the surcharge being inverted, the surcharge being printed double, and various odd other varieties to look out for. So it's certainly one to keep you going and to have a look at. In 1895, Mauritius issued a set of stamps with the arms of Mauritius on them. The initial set was on Crown CA paper and ran from 1 cent up to 18 cents. These are relatively cheap, apart from the 18 cent one, and even that is only catalogued at £28 mint and a mere £3 used, so quite easy to get hold of. And this set was reissued over the years with varying different watermark paper. In 1900 there was a Crown CC watermark set. This ran from 1 cent up to 5 rupees, and this is the valuable set of 18 stamps as a catalogue value of £400 mint and £600 used, although most of that value is taken up with the high denominations, the 1 rupee, 250 and the 5 rupees. Another set was issued with multiple Crown CA watermark paper in 1910. And finally there was a set with multiple script watermark paper in 1921. All of these sets are very easy to get hold of used, particularly the low value are pennies really. It's only the high values that will command a premium. In 1921 there was actually a 50 rupee stamp issued. Now I can't imagine why a 50 rupee stamp would have been used in 1921, but this catalogue's at £950 mint and £4,000 used. I'd love to get hold of one of those, but as I said, I cannot imagine anyone using a 50 rupee stamp at that time. At that time, the familiar key plate design stamps of King George V's head on were also in use, and as was quite normal in Commonwealth countries, there was a set with multiple Crown CA watermark and another set with multiple script CA watermark. Neither of these sets are exceptionally valuable. A couple of £100 will buy you the whole set mint of either of those, so you could probably pick them up for a lot less than that. In 1938, the same design was used for King George VI set. Now, King George VI set is quite an interesting set. It actually consists of 12 different stamps, and the basic set of 12 runs from 2 cents up to 10 rupees and has a catalogue value of £130 mint, £120 used. So not cheap, but not particularly expensive. However, for every single value there is a variety. In fact, in most cases 3 or 4 varieties, which range from plate errors to different perforations and different shades. In total, as well as the 12 original stamps, there are 50 different variations of the various values, making a total of 62 different stamps if you wanted to collect every single one of those. Now, some of those 62 stamps are quite valuable. You're looking at maybe a couple of £1,000 for a few of them, but it's certainly something that is worth having a look at. And if you could get hold of a huge lot of King George VI stamps, worth looking closely to see if you've got any of the varieties. In 1950, Mauritius issued a pictorial set with King George VI image on them, and these were issued in photogravure, rather like the set from the Seychelles, and run from 1 cent up to 10 rupees. A nice set to get hold of. Mint catalogue value £95, used catalogue value also £95. So, and as per usual, it's the high denominations that attract the value. Definitely worth a look and definitely ones to collect. In 1953, these were reissued with Queen Elizabeth's image on them and used largely the same designs. And once again, these are quite readily available, running from 2 cents to 10 rupees again, and catalogue at £70 mint and only £25 used, so very easy to get hold of those. As with nearly all countries, the number of stamps issued in the 60s and 70s started to grow rapidly, but there are still some nice sets to look out for. In 1965, there's a particularly nice set on birds from the Mauritius, and these run from 2 cents up to 10 rupees. Again, quite reasonable to get hold of, £80 mint and £60 used as the catalogue value. There are some variations with this set. A few of them have colours omitted, a few of them have inverted watermarks, so that's something to look out for. These were also reissued in 1968 with different colours. There was a set of only 6 stamps, 2 cent, 3 cent, 15 cent, 20 cent and 60 cent. But these were issued with new colours, or new background colours, so Look out for those as well. And again, very cheap to get hold of. There was also a special booklet issued for these stamps, but it's a very uninspiring booklet. There's a space on the right hand page for you to affix the stamps, and space on the left hand page which gives a description of the stamps. But as I said, it's very uninspiring. There's no decoration, there's no images to look at, and quite disappointing really. And in fact, I think they look better just displayed as a complete set rather than in the booklet. But if you want to get the whole set and all the associated paraphernalia, then it's definitely something that you should look into. And finally, in 1967, the whole set was overprinted with the words Self-Government 1967. These are very cheap to get hold of. The whole set, mint is £20, used is £21. So if you want to get the complete collection of Mauritius bird stamps, then you need to get this one as well. In 1969, there's a nice set of sea life. Again, running from 2 cents to 10 rupees, and again, very cheap to get hold of. One thing to look out for with this set is that the original set was printed on chalk surface paper, but several of the values were reprinted with ordinary glazed paper. Now, I've said frequently that I find it difficult to tell the difference between the paper types, but it does make a difference with the value of these. So the ordinary glazed paper types are generally around about twice as valuable as the chalk surface paper. So if you were able to tell the difference, or if you were able to get hold of a certified set, it's worth looking at. I have to say that after the 1969 set, there's not really a lot that draws my attention from Mauritius. To be honest, it's quite disappointing that they haven't done more on the huge diversity in the wildlife and flora and fauna from Mauritius. In 1978, there was a nice mini sheet printed for the World Wildlife, and this contains 4 stamps running from 20 cents to 5 rupees with various endangered species on them. There's a butterfly on the 20 cents, a lizard on the 1 rupee, flying fox on the 1 rupee 50, and a kestrel on the 5 rupees. There's also a nice set that was issued in 2000, which contains 12 stamps running from 50 cents up to 25 rupees. And these are of the different fish to be found in the waters surrounding Mauritius. These were actually printed on 3 separate mini sheets as well. So it's quite nice to get them in mini sheet form or as individual stamps. There's one other set that grabs my attention that, again, printed in 1978, which depicts the historical events of the Mauritius. It runs from 10 cents to 25 rupees, and it's a fairly different design with sort of old-fashioned paintings and maps of the islands. It's something a bit different and worth getting hold of a set just to give you an idea of the history of the island. Not particularly expensive to get hold of, so quite easy to collect. There's a total of 20 stamps with a mix of vertical and horizontal ones, so worth having a look at if you want to know about the history of Mauritius. The early stamps of Mauritius are certainly worth looking at, with lots of interesting and varied options to attract your interest, and also lots of varieties to get stuck into. I'm not so convinced with the latter stamps from the Mauritius, but that may be just my personal taste, and I'm sure others out there are enjoying the look of them. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at the stamps of Mauritius, and we'll see you again in another couple of weeks.